My parents always said they only had enough love for one daughter. And they meant it literally so literally that my sister and I spent 15 years taking turns being their child, while the other one lived in the basement pretending she didn't exist. I need to explain how this worked because it sounds impossible until you understand. My sister Scarlett was born 11 months after me. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same small frame, we looked nearly identical. And my parents looked at two babies and decided the universe had made a mistake they needed to correct. So they created a system. On the first of every month, one of us became Sophie, their daughter. The one who went to school, slept in a bedroom, existed. The other one moved to the basement with a sleeping bag and disappeared. We shared one life. One medical file. One name. The outside world never knew there were two of us. So I'm going to tell you what it was like to live as half a person. How Scarlett would sneak down to the basement after our parents fell asleep and whisper to me through the darkness about the life I was missing. How we kept journals documenting every lie, every switch, every moment we had to pretend to be each other. And what happened when I got sick during an off month and started vomiting blood, and my parents decided the easiest solution was to finally make their one-daughter fantasy permanent. Because when they pulled out that bottle of pills and gave us 7 days to decide which one of us deserved to live, Scarlett grabbed my hand and we started planning something they never saw coming. Scarlett's fingers wrapped around mine in the dark basement and her grip was so tight I could feel her pulse racing against my wrist. We sat there on the concrete floor with our backs against the cold wall, and I knew what she was thinking because I was thinking it too. We weren't going to choose. We weren't going to let them turn us against each other after 15 years of being forced to share one life. The bottle of pills sat upstairs in their bathroom cabinet, waiting for one of us to take them. But we had something they didn't know about. We had our journals. 15 years of documentation sat hidden in a gap behind the water heater. Every switch recorded. Every lie we had to tell written down in our handwriting that proved two different people existed. For the first time since they gave us 7 days, I felt something other than fear. I felt angry. Scarlett leaned close and whispered that we needed to wait until they fell asleep, and then we'd figure out how to use everything we'd documented against them. The house went quiet around midnight. I heard Mother's bedroom door close, then Father's heavy footsteps in the hallway above us, then nothing but the hum of the old furnace. Scarlett crept to the basement stairs and listened for 5 full minutes before she came back and pulled out her phone. The light from the screen made her face look blue in the darkness. She grabbed the journals from behind the water heater, all 7 of them wrapped in plastic bags to keep them dry, and we spread them out on the floor between us. The flashlight app on her phone gave us just enough light to read by. I opened the oldest journal, the one from when we were 5 years old, and saw my handwriting next to Scarlett's, both of us trying to write the same name. Sophie. The name that belonged to both of us and neither of us. We started making a list of everything we could prove. At every time the school called home about Sophie's changing behavior. Every doctor's visit where the medical records wouldn't match up if anyone looked close enough. Every neighbor who might have noticed something strange about the girl next door who seemed like a different person every few weeks. Morning came too fast. Scarlett had to go upstairs and be Sophie again, and I had to stay down here getting sicker. But this time felt different because we had a plan forming. She took pictures of 3 journal pages with her phone before she left, hiding them in a folder she labeled as homework. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard Mother's voice asking why she looked so tired, heard Scarlett lie smoothly about staying up late studying. The basement door closed and locked from the outside like it always did during Sophie days. I lay back down on my sleeping bag and felt my stomach twist with pain. More blood came up when I coughed, darker than yesterday, and I had to use the basement bathroom to clean myself up. My hands shook while I ran water in the sink. 4 more days until their deadline. 4 days to make this work. Scarlett came back down after school and I could tell from her face that she'd found something. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos of documents she'd taken from Mother's filing cabinet. Life insurance policies. 3 of them. All in the name Sophie Mitchell, our shared identity, with Mother and Father listed as the people who would get the money. The policies were each for $200,000. $600,000 total. The dates on them made my stomach hurt worse than the blood I'd been throwing up. 3 years ago. Right when I first started getting sick during one of my basement months. When I told Scarlett something felt wrong inside me and she begged our parents to let me see a doctor. They'd said no. They'd said mistakes don't get medical care. And apparently they'd gone out and bought insurance policies instead, planning for this moment when one of us would die and they'd collect the money and still have their one perfect daughter left. I spent all of day 2 throwing up blood into the basement toilet while Scarlett sat in the school pretending to be me. My body felt weak and shaky, and I couldn't stand up without the room spinning around me. But I used Scarlett's old phone, the one she'd hidden down here for emergencies, to search for information about people who had to report child abuse. Teachers had to report it, doctors had to report it, and school counselors had to report it, especially if they saw signs that something was wrong with a student. I thought about Eric Wolf, the counselor at the school who Scarlett had mentioned before. She'd told me he always looked confused during their meetings, Like he couldn't figure out why Sophie seemed like a completely different person every time he saw her. He'd been there for 8 years. 8 years of watching Sophie change personalities every month, probably writing notes about it, probably wondering what was going on. Scarlett came down that night and I showed her what I'd found. Her eyes got wide when she read about mandatory reporting laws. She asked if I thought Eric would believe her if she told him the truth. The next morning, Scarlett went to the school with a plan. She was going to talk to Eric and see if he'd noticed anything strange about Sophie over the years. She was going to test the waters carefully, see if he was someone who might actually help us instead of thinking we were crazy. I stayed in the basement feeling sicker and weaker, listening to the house creak above me, counting the hours until she came home. When the basement door finally opened that evening, Scarlett practically ran down the stairs. She sat next to me on the sleeping bag and told me everything. She'd found Eric in his office during lunch and asked if they could talk. She'd told him she needed to discuss something serious but couldn't do it at the school, and she'd asked if he'd ever noticed anything weird about her behavior over the years. His face had changed when she asked that question. He'd gotten very quiet and very focused, and he'd told her yes, he had noticed things. Personality changes, inconsistent academic performance, different handwriting on assignments. He'd been documenting his concerns for 3 years, ever since Sophie suddenly started struggling in classes she'd previously excelled in. That night, Scarlett reported that Eric wanted to schedule a meeting with Sophie and our parents, a conference to discuss Sophie's academic performance and some behavioral concerns he'd observed. Mother and father got nervous when Scarlett told them about it at dinner. I heard them through the basement ceiling, their voices tight and worried. But they didn't sound suspicious enough to refuse the meeting. They'd spent 15 years making Sophie look normal to the outside world, and they wouldn't break that pattern now, even with their murder plan counting down. Father said they'd go to the meeting and handle it like they always handled these things, with rehearsed answers about teenage mood swings and learning difficulties. Mother agreed, but her voice sounded stressed. They didn't know Eric had been watching Sophie for years. They didn't know he'd been building a file of observations that didn't make sense. They thought they were still in control. Day 3 hit me hard. I woke up barely able to move, my whole body aching and my head pounding. I heard Mother and Father fighting upstairs, their voices loud enough to carry through the floorboards. Father wanted to cancel the counselor meeting. He said it was too risky, that they should just move forward with their plan and forget about keeping up appearances. Mother shouted back that canceling would draw more attention than going. She said they'd spent 15 years making Sophie seem normal, and they couldn't break pattern now, not when they were so close to solving their problem permanently. I lay on the concrete floor listening to them argue about which one of us should die, and I felt rage burn through the sickness in my stomach. They were talking about murdering one of their daughters like it was a scheduling problem they needed to work out. Scarlett went to the meeting with our parents the next afternoon. I stayed in the basement, too weak to do anything but wait. Hours crawled by. I kept checking the old phone for the time, watching the numbers change slowly. When Scarlett finally came back down that night, she looked scared and hopeful at the same time. She told me Eric had asked careful questions about Sophie's inconsistent grades and personality changes. Our parents had their answers ready, talking about teenage development and learning disabilities. But Eric's face showed he wasn't buying it. He'd asked to speak with Sophie alone, and Mother had refused immediately. She'd stood up and said they were leaving, that this meeting was a waste of time, and Father had followed her out. Eric had watched them go with this intense look on his face, and he'd written something in his notes right there in front of them. Scarlett pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. Eric's personal cell phone number, written in his handwriting, with a note that said to call him if she ever needed help with anything at all. She'd asked him why he was giving her his number, and he'd looked at her very seriously, and said he was required by law to report suspected abuse. He'd told her he'd been documenting concerns about Sophie for 3 years now, keeping detailed notes about the inconsistencies he'd observed, and today's meeting with her parents had only made him more worried. We sat together in the basement holding that piece of paper with Eric's number on it, and for the first time since our parents gave us 7 days to choose who would die, we had something more powerful than fear. We had an ally who'd been building a case without even knowing the full truth, and we had 4 days left to tell him everything. Day 4 hit me harder than any day before. I woke up on the concrete floor with my whole body shaking and sweat soaking through my clothes even though the basement was cold. The fever made everything feel fuzzy and far away, like I was watching myself from outside my body. I threw up again, and this time there was more blood than anything else, dark red and thick, and I stared at it in the toilet feeling scared in a way I hadn't felt before. My hands were shaking when I tried to flush it, and I could barely stand up without the room spinning. I heard footsteps upstairs and knew Scarlett was getting ready for school, putting on the Sophie performance for another day, and I wanted to call out to her, but my throat felt too raw to make any sound. The basement door opened, and Scarlett came down the stairs fast, her face white when she saw me sitting on the floor next to the toilet. She knelt down and put her hand on my forehead, and I heard her breath catch. She told me I was burning up, that this was bad, really bad, and I needed to go to the hospital right now. I shook my head because I knew what our parents would say, but Scarlett grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the stairs. She was breaking the biggest rule we had, acknowledging my existence during her Sophie month, and I tried to tell her to stop, but she wouldn't listen. We made it halfway up the stairs before Mother appeared at the top, her face going hard when she saw both of us together. Scarlett started talking fast, saying I needed a doctor, saying the fever was too high and there was blood everywhere, and this couldn't wait 3 more days. Mother came down the stairs and I saw her hand move before I felt the slap across Scarlett's face, the sound sharp and loud in the stairwell. Mother's voice was cold when she said that mistakes don't get medical care, that we knew the rules, that Scarlett was being selfish and dramatic. Father appeared behind Mother and looked down at us with this tired expression, like we were bothering him with something small and annoying. He said in 3 days this problem would be permanently solved anyway, so there was no point wasting money on doctors. Scarlett started crying and begging, saying I might die before 3 days, and Father just turned around and walked away. Mother grabbed Scarlett by the arm and dragged her back upstairs, telling her to get ready for school and stop making scenes. I crawled back down to the basement floor and lay there shaking, listening to Scarlett crying in the kitchen above me. The morning dragged by in a blur of fever and pain. I kept drifting in and out, sometimes awake and sometimes not sure if I was dreaming. When I opened my eyes, the light coming through the small basement window had changed, and I knew it was afternoon, which meant Scarlett was at the school. I wondered if she was sitting in class pretending everything was normal, or if Eric could see something was wrong. My whole body hurt, and I couldn't stop shaking, and I started thinking maybe our parents were right. Maybe in 3 days this would all be over, and I wouldn't have to feel this sick anymore. Then I heard Scarlett's voice in my head from all those nights she'd snuck down to whisper to me in the dark, telling me we were going to survive this. We were going to get out, and I made myself sit up, even though it hurt. Scarlett came home from the school that afternoon, and I heard her footsteps running through the house. She came down to the basement and sat next to me, and her hands were shaking when she pulled out her phone. She told me she'd done it. She'd called Eric from the school bathroom during lunch, and she'd told him everything. Her voice was shaking when she described how she'd explained the whole system to him. The switching every month, the shared identity, the basement, the journals, the insurance policies, the bottle of pills, the 7-day deadline. She said Eric had stayed calm on the phone even though she was crying, and he'd told her he was calling Child Protective Services and police right away. He'd said she needed to go home and act normal until help arrived, that she shouldn't let our parents know anything had changed. But Scarlett's face was scared when she looked at me, and she said she didn't know if she could pretend everything was fine, not with me this sick, not knowing what our parents might do if they figured out she'd betrayed them. I grabbed her hand and told her she had to try. We just needed to make it through one more night and then help would come. She nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. When Scarlett went back upstairs, I heard Mother's voice asking where she'd been, why she was late getting home from the school. Scarlett said something about staying after to talk to a teacher about homework, and Mother's voice got sharp, asking which teacher, what homework. I heard Scarlett stumble over her words, and I knew Mother could hear the lie. Father's footsteps came into the kitchen, and everything went quiet for a minute. Then I heard Father tell Scarlett to give him her backpack. Scarlett said no, and there was a sound like something hitting the floor. Father's voice got loud, saying he asked for the backpack and he wanted it now. I heard zippers opening and things being pulled out, and then Father said something I couldn't hear clearly. Mother's voice got high and angry, asking who Eric was, why his number was in Scarlett's phone. Scarlett tried to say he was just the school counselor, but Mother started screaming about ungrateful children ruining everything, about how they'd given us one simple choice and we couldn't even do that right. I heard Father's footsteps heading toward the basement door, and I scrambled backward across the concrete floor until I hit the wall. The door flew open and Father came down the stairs fast, his face red and angry. Scarlett came running after him, screaming for him to stop, to leave me alone, and she threw herself between Father and me. Father shoved Scarlett aside and she hit the wall hard, but she got back up and grabbed his arm. He was holding the bottle of pills in his hand, and his voice was shaking when he said we'd forced his hand. We couldn't just choose like he'd asked, so he'd choose for us. Scarlett tackled him, and they both went down on the concrete floor. She was screaming at me to run, and I tried to stand up, but my legs wouldn't work right. I heard the pills scatter across the floor and Father cursing and Scarlett crying. I made myself move, crawling toward the stairs first and then pulling myself up using the railing. Scarlett was still fighting with Father, trying to hold him back, and I stumbled up the stairs as fast as I could. Mother was at the top and tried to grab me, but I pushed past her into the kitchen. My hands were shaking, so bad I could barely hold the phone when I grabbed it off the wall. I dialed 911 and Mother tried to rip the phone away from me. We struggled and I held on tight, screaming our address into the receiver, saying my father was trying to kill my sister in the basement. The dispatcher's voice came through calm and steady, saying police were on the way, telling me to stay on the line. Mother was pulling at my hair and the phone cord, and I kept talking, saying please hurry, please send someone now. Scarlett appeared at the top of the basement stairs with blood running down her forehead from where she'd hit the wall. She looked at me and then at Mother, and we both moved at the same time toward the bathroom. We got inside and locked the door and pushed the cabinet in front of it. Our parents started pounding on the door, and Father was yelling that we were making everything worse, that we should have just chosen. Scarlett and I sat on the bathroom floor with our backs against the cabinet, holding hands, listening to our parents scream outside. I kept the phone pressed to my ear, and the dispatcher kept talking to me, asking if we were safe, telling me help was coming. 8 minutes passed that felt like hours. Then we heard sirens outside, and the pounding on the bathroom door stopped. Our parents' voices changed completely, and we heard Mother talking to someone in this sweet, concerned voice, saying she didn't understand what was happening. Their daughter Sophie had been having mental health issues and hallucinations lately. Father was agreeing, saying they'd been so worried about her, asking if the officers could help them get her some psychiatric care. I heard another voice and recognized it as Eric, and he was saying he had documentation. He needed to speak with the officers privately. More voices filled the house, and someone knocked on the bathroom door gently, saying we were safe now, asking us to come out. Scarlett and I looked at each other and slowly moved the cabinet away from the door. I unlocked the bathroom door, and Scarlett and I stepped out together. 2 police officers stood in the hallway, along with a woman in business clothes who introduced herself as a social worker. She asked if we were hurt, and I told her about my stomach and the blood, and Scarlett showed her the cut on her forehead. The woman's face went tight when she looked at us standing there together, 2 girls who looked almost exactly the same, and she said she needed to talk to each of us separately. They took me to the kitchen and Scarlett to the living room, and for the next hour I answered questions about the switching system, while an officer wrote everything down. I described how we'd lived for 15 years, taking turns being Sophie, sharing one life between us. I told them about the basement and the sleeping bag, and how we'd documented everything in our journals. When I mentioned the journals, the officer's eyes got sharp, and he asked where they were. I said they were hidden in the basement wall behind a loose brick, and he radioed to another officer to search for them. The social worker asked about the pills, and I told her our parents had given us 7 days to choose which one of us would die. Her hand shook when she wrote that down. She asked if I needed medical attention, and I said yes. I'd been vomiting blood for weeks, and my parents wouldn't take me to a doctor because I didn't exist during my off months. She immediately called for an ambulance. In the living room, I could hear Scarlett telling her story to a different officer, and even through the wall, I could tell she was describing the same things I was. When they brought us back together, the social worker's face looked sick. She said our stories matched exactly, down to specific dates and details about individual switches. The officers had found our journals in the basement along with my sleeping bag and the evidence of my illness on the concrete floor. One officer came upstairs holding the journals carefully in gloved hands, and another officer brought up the bottle of pills our parents had given us. I heard Mother's voice from the front yard getting loud and defensive, telling the officers this was all a misunderstanding, that their daughter Sophie had been having mental health problems. Father was agreeing, saying they'd been trying to get me psychiatric help. But then Eric showed up with a thick folder of papers and told the officers he had documentation going back 3 years showing Sophie's inconsistent behavior and academic performance. He'd been tracking every strange change, every personality shift, every unexplained absence, and he'd noted all of it because something had felt wrong for years. The social worker looked through Eric's documentation, and then at our journals, and then at Scarlett and me standing together. She told the officers this was the most serious case of child abuse she'd seen in 20 years of social work. The ambulance arrived and paramedics loaded me onto a stretcher. Scarlett tried to come with me, but the social worker said she needed to go to the hospital too for her head injury, so they put her in a second ambulance. As they wheeled me out, I saw our parents in handcuffs being put into separate police cars. Mother was crying and saying this was all a mistake, but Father just stared at the ground. At the emergency room, a doctor named Violet examined me, and her face got more and more angry as she documented my condition. She said I had a bleeding ulcer, severe malnutrition, and dehydration so bad I needed immediate IV fluids. She asked how long I'd been sick, and I told her weeks, maybe months. But my parents wouldn't get me help because officially I didn't exist. Violet's hands clenched into fists, and she said she was filing a mandatory abuse report, and then she admitted me to the hospital with security posted outside my room. Scarlett was brought to the same hospital for her head injury, and they put her in a room down the hall. The social worker came to interview us again separately, stories still matched, and when they did, she looked at us both with tears in her eyes. She said she believed us, and she was going to make sure we were safe. Over the next few hours, more people came to talk to us. A detective named Dorian, who specialized in child abuse cases, asked detailed questions about our parents' finances. I told him about the insurance policies Scarlett had found, and he got a warrant to search the house for financial records. Later that night, he came back and said he'd found not just the insurance policies, but evidence of fraud going back years. Our parents had been collecting benefits for one disabled child, while hiding the existence of the second, double-dipping on tax credits, and planning to collect a death benefit while keeping the survivor as Sophie. The charges against them kept growing. child abuse, neglect, attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. The detective said they were being held without bail because the judge considered them dangerous to us. That night, Scarlett was moved into my hospital room, and for the first time in 15 years, we slept in the same room legally. 2 beds, a window, no basement. I kept waking up to make sure she was really there, that this wasn't some dream I'd have to wake up from back in the basement. The hospital kept me for a week treating the ulcer and malnutrition. Scarlett stayed 2 even after her head healed because the social worker didn't have placement for us yet. We spent the days talking, really talking for the first time without having to whisper in the dark. We told each other stories about our separate months, filling in 15 years of gaps. I learned that during her March 3 years ago, she'd won a spelling bee, and she learned that during my October 2 years ago, I'd failed a math test because she'd been learning different material. We were 2 people who'd been forced to be one, and now we were learning who we actually were beyond the Sophie performance. Eric visited us and brought our journals. The police had copied them as evidence but released the originals back to us. He sat beside our beds and said he was sorry for not understanding sooner, for not seeing the pattern clearly enough to stop this years ago. Scarlett grabbed his hand and told him he saved our lives by documenting everything, and believing her when she finally told the truth. Eric started crying, and said he'd never seen anything like our case, that he'd been a counselor for 15 years, and he'd missed so many signs. I told him there was no way he could have known because our parents had designed the system to be invisible. He was the first adult who'd ever cried because of what happened to us, instead of what we cost them. On day 12 after our escape, the social worker Caroline found us a placement. She looked exhausted when she came to tell us, like she'd been fighting hard to find something good. She said a family 2 towns over named the Richardsons wanted to take us together. Max and his wife Elodie had fostered siblings before, and they understood that separating us would be another trauma. Caroline said our case was extraordinary even for her, and she'd seen terrible things in 20 years of social work. We moved into the Richardson home that afternoon. They gave us each our own bedroom, and I stood in mine staring at the bed and the dresser and the window with curtains. Scarlett came to my doorway, and we looked at each other, both of us holding our small bags of hospital clothes and donated items. That night, I tried to sleep in my own room, but I kept getting up to check that Scarlett was still in the house, still real, still alive. Around midnight, she appeared in my doorway and asked if she could sleep in my room. We pushed our beds together and lay there in the dark, not talking, just being in the same space. Elodie found us like that in the morning, and she didn't say anything about it, just asked what we wanted for breakfast. Over the next weeks, we kept ending up in the same room at night, not sure how to sleep without knowing where the other one was. Elodie never forced us to use separate rooms or act grateful or perform normalcy. She just let us figure out our own rhythm. Meanwhile, our parents' case moved forward fast because the evidence was overwhelming. The journals documented 15 years of systematic abuse. The insurance policies showed financial motivation. The fraud was clear in the financial records. Eric's documentation proved the school had noticed problems for years. Medical records showed Sophie's inconsistent health over 15 years, sometimes healthy and sometimes sick with no explanation. The prosecutor came to visit us at the Richardsons and said our parents were facing 20 to 30 years in prison. She asked if we wanted to give victim impact statements at sentencing, and we both said yes immediately. Scarlett said we needed to speak in the same room at the same time and have them see us both as real. 3 months after our escape, we stood together in court. I'd chosen a new name by then, Violet, after the doctor who saved my life. Scarlett kept her name because it was the one thing that had always been only hers. We walked into the courtroom holding hands, and I saw our parents sitting at the defense table. They looked smaller somehow, less powerful than they'd seemed our whole lives. The judge asked us to speak, and we took turns telling our story. I described what it was like to live as half a person, to spend every other month in a basement pretending I didn't exist. Scarlett described the fear of switching, of having to become someone else, of carrying 2 lives in one body. We talked about the journals and the midnight briefings where we taught each other how to be Sophie. We described the moment our parents gave us the pills and the 7-day deadline. Our parents stared at the floor the whole time, never looking up at us. When the judge sentenced them to 25 years each, Scarlett squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. We stood up together and walked out of the courtroom into the sunlight, 2 separate girls who finally got to exist at the same time. My sister-in-law gave my daughter a phone, as a gift. I found out she'd been texting her for months saying, "I wish you were my daughter." 3 weeks later, she tried to take her from school, and when that didn't work, she came for her at night. My sister-in-law Evelyn has always believed she was owed a child, and when she couldn't have one, she made it everyone else's problem. When my cousin announced her pregnancy at Easter dinner, Evelyn said, "Must be nice to not even have to try," loud enough for the whole table to hear. She made every baby shower about herself. She'd show up with a tight smile and say things like, "You're so lucky you get to use all these gifts. I have a whole nursery sitting empty at home. But this isn't about me. Today's about you. I'll just sit here and be happy for you like I always do." Nobody ever told her to stop because they felt too guilty. Then there was my daughter Amy. Evelyn had been cold toward all the other nieces and nephews, but for some reason she showered Amy with attention. Gifts every time she saw her. Special trips, just the two of them. Treats she knew I didn't allow. She bought my daughter's love, and it worked. I didn't like it from the start. And I honestly had every reason not to, because she went behind my back and did the one thing I told everyone in this family not to do. She even had the audacity to smile in my face after I called her out on it. But Evelyn didn't care about my rules. She only cared about making sure Amy loved her more than she loved me. Amy had been begging for a phone for months. She was too young, and the internet is not a safe place for kids, so I told her no. That didn't stop her from asking. She brought it up constantly. She cried about it more than once because her cousins had phones and her friends had phones, and she felt like the only kid in the world being left out. I explained to her that the internet was a dangerous place and she wasn't ready for it. She didn't care. She just heard no, and that was enough to make me the bad guy. I made sure everyone in the family knew where I stood. I told them at a dinner one night that Amy was not allowed to have a phone, and I would appreciate it if nobody gave her one or let her use theirs without my permission. Everyone nodded. They understood. I thought I had made myself clear. Then came my Mill's birthday party. The whole family was there. Kids running around everywhere, food covering every counter, people packed into the living room and spilling out onto the patio. It was the kind of loud, chaotic gathering where you couldn't hear yourself think. I was sitting on the couch with my husband Henry, half listening to my father-in-law tell some story about a fishing trip, when Evelyn stood up from her chair across the room. "Everyone, I have an announcement," she said. All eyes slowly went to her. She stood there soaking it in, waiting until she had everyone's full attention before she started talking. "I just want to take a moment to talk about someone really special to me," she said. I remember feeling my shoulders tense. I don't know why. She hadn't done anything yet, but something about the way she was standing there, the way she was smiling, made my chest tight. "My niece Amy," Evelyn continued, "is the sweetest, most amazing little girl I have ever known. She is kind and funny and smart, and I feel so blessed to have her in my life." Amy was sitting on the floor near the TV. She looked up when she heard her name and smiled that big smile kids do when they're being praised in front of people. I should have felt warm. I should have been happy that someone was saying nice things about my daughter. But I wasn't. Something was wrong. I could feel it. "I love spending time with her," Evelyn said. "I love that she actually wants to hang out with me when some of the other kids couldn't care less." She laughed. A few people laughed with her. "She makes me feel really special." So I wanted to do something to make her feel special too. My smile was frozen on my face. I looked at Henry, but he wasn't looking at me. He was watching his sister like everyone else. "Now I know," Evelyn said, turning her head slightly in my direction, "that her mom can be a little strict sometimes." More laughter. My face felt hot. "But I think every kid deserves to be spoiled once in a while. And Amy deserves it more than anyone." She reached behind the couch. My heart started beating faster, and I didn't know what she was reaching for, but every part of me was screaming that I wasn't going to like it. When she stood back up, she was holding a box. A small rectangular box. White and shiny and unmistakable. A phone. I felt the strongest urge to punch her. "Amy, baby, come here," Evelyn said. "This is for you." Amy's eyes went wide. She scrambled off the floor and ran to Evelyn so fast she almost tripped. She grabbed the box and stared at it like she couldn't believe it was real. Then she screamed. Not a small scream. The kind of scream that fills a room and bounces off the walls. She ripped the box open right there and pulled the phone out and clutched it to her chest. Then she threw her arms around Evelyn and hugged her so tight. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she kept saying. "This is the best present ever. I love you so much." "I love you too, baby," Evelyn said. She was looking right at me over Amy's shoulder, still smiling, eyes sharp. She knew exactly what she had just done. Everyone started clapping. My MIL had her hand on her chest saying how sweet it was. My FIL was nodding. The aunts and uncles were smiling like they had just witnessed the most heartwarming moment. Nobody looked at me. Nobody remembered the conversation we had just weeks ago. I sat there and said nothing, even though I wanted to walk over there and take the phone out of Amy's hands and ask Evelyn what made her think this was okay. I wanted to remind everyone in that room that I had specifically said no phones. I wanted to make a scene and embarrass her the way she was embarrassing me. But I didn't. Because Amy was so happy, everyone was watching, and I knew the second I opened my mouth, I would be the villain. The strict mom. The one who ruined a nice moment over something small. Evelyn knew that too. That's why she did it there in front of everyone where I couldn't say no without looking like the bad guy. So I clapped. I smiled. I played the part of the grateful mother whose daughter just got a nice gift from her loving aunt. But I wasn't grateful, and Evelyn wasn't loving. She was calculating. And the smug look on her face told me she thought she had gotten away with it. That I would just swallow my anger and move on because I didn't want to cause drama. But I wasn't going to let this slide. The second I got her alone, she was going to hear exactly what I thought about her little stunt. I followed after Evelyn when she went into the kitchen. "The phone," I said, wasting no time. "What was that?" Evelyn tilted her head. "Wasn't it great? Amy loved it. I told everyone a few weeks ago that Amy wasn't allowed to have a phone. You were there." She waved her hand. "Oh, come on, Blair. I figured you'd loosened up by now." "I didn't," I said. "You knew the rule and you broke it anyway." Evelyn sighed and crossed her arms. "Look, I didn't think it was that serious. She's been wanting one for so long and I just wanted to make her happy. Is that so wrong? Why didn't you ask me first?" "Because I knew you'd say no," she said like it was obvious. "And I didn't want to disappoint her." "She's my daughter," I said. "It's my decision." Evelyn flinched. Just barely. Like the word daughter physically bothered her. She recovered fast, but I caught it. "I know that. Then why are you acting like you get a say in how I raise her?" Evelyn's eyes went wide. "Wow. Okay. I give a kid a gift and suddenly I'm overstepping?" She shook her head slowly. "You know I can't have children. You know how hard that's been for me. And now you're standing here making me feel like a monster for wanting to spoil a little girl who actually wants to spend time with me. This isn't about that, isn't it?" she asked. "Because it feels like you're punishing me for loving her too much." "I'm not punishing you for anything. I'm telling you that you crossed a line." Evelyn laughed softly. "You know what I think? I think you're so obsessed with control that you can't stand seeing Amy happy with anyone but you. That's not true. She's 9 years old and you're buying her love with gifts. I'm not buying anything. She comes to me because she wants to. Because I actually listen to her." She smiled. "But sure. Keep telling yourself I'm the problem." She moved toward the doorway. I didn't step aside. "I'm not done," I said. "Well, I am." She brushed past me. "You should get back out there. Amy's probably looking for you. Or maybe she's looking for me." She walked out like the conversation meant nothing. I thought the phone was the worst of it, but it was actually a door to something worse. And Amy fell into that trap. It started with attitude. Then the secrecy. Then the things she said that didn't sound like her at all. My sweet girl was turning into someone I didn't recognize and I couldn't figure out why. I should have known it was because of that damn phone. The first thing I did when we got home from the party was sit Amy down and tell her we needed to talk about the phone. I told her she could keep it, but there were going to be rules. No using it after 8 p.m., no downloading apps without asking me first, no taking it to school. She looked at me like I had just told her Santa was giving her coal for Christmas. She started crying and saying it wasn't fair, and that I always ruin everything. I told her these were the rules, and if she couldn't follow them, then the phone would be taken away. She stormed off to her room and slammed the door. A few minutes later, she came back out and said, "Aunt Evelyn was right. You really do need to loosen up." I didn't let that slide. I told her she doesn't get to speak to me that way. I told her if she slammed another door in this house, the phone would be gone before she could blink. She started to argue, and I cut her off. I said, "I'm not asking you, I'm telling you." She didn't like it, but she backed down. I wasn't going to let a 9-year-old run my house because someone handed her a phone and told her she was special. But even with the rules in place, things started changing. She was on that phone constantly, at breakfast, during dinner, right up until I told her to put it away for bed. She'd sit on the couch with her head down, fingers tapping away, giggling at things she wouldn't show me. When I asked who she was texting, she'd say no one. When I asked to see what was so funny, she'd lock the screen and say it was private. I took the phone from her a few times when she got too secretive. She threw fits every single time. I grounded her twice in 1 month, which was more than I had grounded her in her entire life. Then came the attitude. She started talking back in ways she never had before, rolling her eyes, sighing like everything I said was exhausting, and the things she said started sounding off. She told me once that I was obsessed with control. Another time she said I didn't know how to let people be happy. These weren't her words. 9-year-olds don't talk like that. She started comparing me to Evelyn constantly. "Aunt Evelyn lets me stay up late. Aunt Evelyn doesn't make me eat vegetables. Aunt Evelyn says kids should be allowed to express themselves. Aunt Evelyn this. Aunt Evelyn that." It was like everything I did was wrong and everything that woman did was right. And then I realized where all this was coming from. Amy left it on the kitchen counter when she ran to the bathroom. The screen lit up with a notification. I wasn't going to look. I really wasn't. But I saw the name. Evelyn. And the message said, "I wish you were my daughter. You can call me Mom if you want to." My heart fell to my butt. I immediately grabbed her phone and went through her messages. Evelyn telling Amy that I was too hard on her, how she's the only one that understands her. Evelyn even told her to delete their texts so I wouldn't find out, and Amy responded to all of it, laughing when Evelyn called me the Wicked Witch of the West, telling her that she wishes she could move in with Evelyn, asking her for advice instead of coming to me. It all made sense now. The attitude, the secrecy, the phrases that didn't sound like her, the way she looked at me like I was the enemy. Evelyn had been in her ear this entire time, turning her against me message by message. Amy came back from the bathroom and saw me holding her phone. She immediately looked scared. "What are you doing?" "That's my phone. You can't just go through my stuff. I can do whatever I want. I'm your mother." I held up the screen so she could see the messages. "You want to explain this?" She knew exactly what I was looking at. "That's private," she said. "You had no right to read that. You've been texting Evelyn behind my back. She told you to call her mom. She told you to delete your messages so I wouldn't find out." My voice was shaking, but I kept it steady. "You're never seeing her alone again. And this phone is gone." "No." She tried to grab it and I stepped back. "You can't do that. She gave it to me." "I don't care who gave it to you. It's done." "I hate you," she screamed. "You're the worst mom ever. I wish Aunt Evelyn was my real mom. I want to live with her." I stood there and let her scream. It hurt more than I expected. But I didn't back down. Evelyn had been whispering poison into my daughter's ear for weeks, and I was going to put a stop to it whether Amy liked it or not. I thought taking the phone would be the end of it. I thought cutting off their secret conversations would stop whatever Evelyn was trying to do. But taking something away from Evelyn only made her want it more. She wasn't the type to back down. She was the type to push harder. And when she couldn't get to Amy through a screen anymore, she decided to get to her in person. I was at home when my phone rang on a Wednesday afternoon. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to pick it up. "Hi, this is Mrs. McCarty from Amy's school. I'm calling about your daughter," the voice said. I instantly got worried. "Is she okay? Did something happen?" "She's fine," Mrs. McCarty said. "But there's a woman here trying to pick her up. She says she's Amy's aunt and that you sent her to get Amy early for a surprise. I just wanted to verify before I release her." "What's her name?" "She said her name is Evelyn." I actually felt my blood run cold. "Do not let her take my daughter. Do you hear me? Do not let that woman anywhere near Amy." "Of course. I'll let her know we couldn't verify the release. I'm coming right now. Keep Amy in the office until I get there. Don't let her out of your sight." I hung up the phone and my legs gave out. I had to grab the kitchen counter just to stay upright. She went to the school. This wasn't about ice cream or spending time together. This was Evelyn trying to take my daughter behind my back. What was her plan? Take Amy for the afternoon and pretend it was innocent? Keep her overnight? Not bring her back at all? My mind was spinning. How far was she willing to go? What else had she been planning that I didn't know about? If Mrs. McCarty hadn't thought to call me, if she had just believed Evelyn's little story about a surprise, my daughter would be in her car right now, going God knows where, thinking it was all just fun with her favorite aunt. When I got there, Evelyn was still standing in the front office. She looked up when I walked in and had the nerve to smile at me. "Blair! There you are. I was just trying to surprise Amy with some ice cream, but they wouldn't let me take her without your permission." She laughed like the whole thing was silly. "Schools are so strict these days." I didn't laugh. I walked right past her to the front desk. "I need to update my daughter's pickup list," I said to Mrs. McCarty. "This woman is not allowed to pick up Amy, ever, under any circumstances. Put it in her file, highlight it. Whatever she says or whatever excuse she gives, she does not leave with my child." Evelyn's smile fell. "Blair, come on. I was just trying to do something nice. You showed up at my daughter's school without telling me." I turned to face her. "You tried to take her without my permission. That's not nice. That's insane." "It wasn't a big deal. I just wanted to spend some time with her." "You're not allowed to see her." My feet moved closer to her before I could stop them. "Stay away from my daughter. Stay away from her school." Evelyn stared at me. Something flickered behind her eyes for just a second. Something cold. Then she blinked and it was gone. "You're overreacting," she said softly. "I would never hurt her. I love her. That's the problem." She didn't say anything else, just walked out of the office like she hadn't just tried to take my child from school without my knowledge. My whole body was shaking. Mrs. McCarty asked if I was okay and I couldn't even answer her. All I could think about was what would have happened if she hadn't called me. If she had just handed Amy over because Evelyn smiled and said it was a surprise. I would have never forgiven myself. When we got home, I sat Amy down at the kitchen table. Henry was already there. He had left work early after I called him in a panic about what happened at the school. Amy looked terrified. She knew she was in trouble. "Did you know Aunt Evelyn was coming to pick you up today?" I asked. She shook her head. "Don't lie to me." Her face crumpled. "She told me she might. She said she missed me and wanted to surprise me. And you were just going to leave with her without telling anyone?" Henry's voice was sharp. "She said not to," Amy whispered, then looked at me as she said if I told you, you'd ruin it like you always do." Those words hit me like a slap. Henry looked at me and I could see the anger building in his face. "What else has she told you?" Amy went quiet. She was picking at her fingernails and wouldn't look at either of us. I got up and grabbed her phone from where I had hidden it in the kitchen drawer. If she wasn't going to speak, these messages would speak for her. I unlocked it and started scrolling. Henry came around to look over my shoulder. That's when I saw them. Photos I hadn't noticed before buried in the message thread. A bedroom with pink walls and a white canopy bed. Stuffed animals covering the shelves. A closet full of clothes with the tags still on them. A desk with coloring books and art supplies arranged perfectly. What is this? I turned the screen to Amy. She wouldn't look at me. It's my room. Your room is upstairs. My room at Aunt Evelyn's house, she said quietly. She made it for me. Henry grabbed the phone from my hand. He was scrolling through the photos. His face was getting redder with each one. Then he stopped. Blair, look at this. He showed me the screen. Under one of the photos, Evelyn had written, "Your room is ready whenever you are. You don't have to wait for permission. If you ever feel scared or unsafe, just call me. I'll come get you. Day or night. I'll always come get you." I wanted to throw up. Henry's hand was shaking. "She told you that you could leave whenever you wanted?" He asked Amy. "That you could just call her and she'd come get you?" Amy nodded. "She said she would be a better mom than you. That I belong with her." Henry put the phone down on the table. He looked at me and I could see it in his face. The realization. Evelyn wasn't just crossing boundaries. She was trying to replace me. She had been setting this up for months. The gifts, the trips, the phone, the messages. All of it was leading to this. A room waiting, clothes ready, an escape plan planted in my daughter's head. We blocked Evelyn's number. We told Amy she wasn't allowed to see her anymore, and that was final. Amy cried for days. She begged us to change our minds. She said we were being mean for no reason. Henry and I stayed firm. We had to protect her even if she didn't understand. But Amy wasn't just sad. She was furious. She stopped talking to us unless it was to say something cruel. At breakfast, she'd ignore me when I asked her questions. At dinner, she'd push her food around her plate and refuse to eat. When I told her to clean her room, she said, "You can't tell me what to do." One night, I asked her how school was, and she looked at me like I disgusted her. "I don't want to talk to you." "Amy, I'm your mother. You need to show me respect." "Aunt Evelyn said you don't deserve respect. She said you're mean and you don't care about me." Henry slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You don't talk to your mother like that." "I don't care. You're both horrible. Aunt Evelyn is the only one who's nice to me, and you took her away." "She was tricking you," I said. "No, she wasn't. She loves me. You're just jealous because I love her more than you." That one hit me right in the chest. Amy saw it on my face and kept going. "I hate living here. I hate both of you. I wish Aunt Evelyn was my real mom. I wish she could just come take me away." She ran to her room and slammed the door so hard the whole house shook. Henry looked at me. His face was pale. Neither of us said anything. We both knew Evelyn had gotten so deep into her head that we didn't even recognize our own daughter anymore. And the worst part was we had no idea how much worse it was about to get. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Amy stopped screaming at us. She stopped slamming doors. She just went to school and came home and locked herself in her room without saying a word. I should have known that wasn't a good sign. I should have realized that silence meant she was planning something. I woke up at 2 in the morning on Saturday. I don't know why. I just did. My eyes opened and I was staring at the ceiling and my heart was pounding like I had just run a mile. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my chest. In my bones. It was that feeling you get when you know something terrible has happened, but you don't know what yet. I sat up. Henry was asleep next to me. The house was silent. Too silent. I listened for Amy's sound machine that she always ran at night, but I couldn't hear it. I threw the covers off and got out of bed. My legs felt weak. And then I walked down the hall to Amy's room and opened the door. Her bed was empty. For a second, I just stood there staring at the blankets pushed to the side, at the pillow still dented from where her head had been, at the stuffed bear she slept with every night sitting on the floor like it had been tossed aside in a hurry. "Amy?" I said it quiet at first. Like maybe she was in the bathroom. Like maybe she was downstairs getting water. "Amy?" No answer. I ran to the bathroom. Empty. I ran downstairs. The kitchen was dark. The living room was empty. I checked every room, every closet, every corner. She wasn't there. "Amy!" I was screaming now. I didn't care if I woke up the whole neighborhood. "Amy, where are you?" Henry came running down the stairs. "What's wrong? What happened?" "She's gone. Amy's gone." "What do you mean she's gone?" "I mean she's not in her room. She's not in the house. She's gone." Henry ran back upstairs to check for himself. I stood in the living room with my hands shaking so bad I had to press them against my legs to keep them still. My mind was racing. Where would she go? Why would she leave? Did someone take her? Did she run away? And then I knew. Evelyn. I ran to the front door and threw it open. The street was empty. No cars, no people. Just the glow of the streetlights and the sound of my own breathing. I checked the driveway. Both our cars were still there. I checked the backyard. Nothing. Henry came back down. Her window. It's unlocked. She went out through her window. A chill ran down my spine at the realization. She didn't just leave. She snuck out. She planned this. Evelyn, I said. She's with Evelyn. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Where else would she go? Evelyn told her she'd be there day or night. She said she could be a better mom than me. She told her. My voice cracked. She took her. Henry grabbed his phone. I'm calling the police. I was already moving. I grabbed my keys off the counter and my purse and I was heading for the door. Where are you going? Henry asked. Evelyn's house. Blair, wait for the police. I'm not waiting. I turned to look at him. That woman has my daughter. I'm not sitting here waiting for someone to tell me what to do. I'm going to get her. I didn't wait for him to respond. I ran to the car and started the engine. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. I backed out of the driveway too fast and almost hit the mailbox. I didn't care. I pressed my foot down on the gas and drove. Evelyn lived 20 minutes away. I made it in 15. Every red light felt like an hour. Every stop sign felt like torture. My mind wouldn't stop. What if Amy wasn't there? What if I was wrong? What if Evelyn had taken her somewhere else? What if she was already gone? What if I never saw her again? I couldn't breathe. My chest was so tight I thought I was going to pass out. I rolled down the window and gulped in air. The cold hit my face, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. My daughter was gone. My 9-year-old baby was gone, and I didn't know if she was safe. I didn't know if she was scared. I didn't know if she even wanted to be found. That thought hit me harder than anything else. What if Amy didn't want to come home? What if she looked at me when I got there and said she wanted to stay with Evelyn? What if I had lost her for good? No. I couldn't think like that. I had to focus. I had to get to her. Evelyn's car was in the driveway. I parked on the street and got out. My legs felt like they were going to give out, but I made myself walk. I made myself move. I walked up to the front door and I didn't knock. I pounded on it with my fist so hard my knuckles started to hurt. Evelyn, open the door. No answer. I pounded again. Evelyn, I know she's in there. Open the door right now. Still nothing. I tried the handle. It was locked. I looked around for another way in. A window, a side door, anything. I pounded on the door one more time. Evelyn, if you don't open this door, I swear to God. The door opened. Evelyn stood there in her pajamas looking at me like I was the crazy one. Like I was the one who had done something wrong. Blair? She yawned and rubbed her eye as if I had just woken her up. What are you doing here? For a second I thought I was wrong. But every light in the place was on. I looked past her into the house. Every light was on. She wasn't asleep. She had been waiting for this. Waiting for me to show up. And from the calm look on her face, she wasn't planning on giving me my daughter back without a fight. I had no idea how far gone she really was. I had no idea that the woman standing in front of me didn't see herself as the villain in this story. She saw herself as the hero. And that made her more dangerous than I ever could have imagined. I didn't wait for her to answer. I shoved past her and ran straight into her house. Amy! I was screaming so loud my throat hurt. Amy, where are you? I tore through the living room, the kitchen, the hallway. Evelyn was right behind me, but I didn't care. I took the stairs 2 at a time, nearly tripping, catching myself on the railing. I threw open the first door. Empty. The second. A bathroom. The third door. And there she was. Amy was sitting on the white canopy bed I had seen in the photos. The pink walls. The stuffed animals everywhere. The desk with art supplies. She was wearing pajamas I didn't recognize. New ones. She looked up when I burst in and her eyes went wide. Mom? I ran to her and grabbed her and pulled her into my arms. My whole body was shaking. Oh my God, Amy. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? I was running my hands over her face, her arms, checking for injuries, for anything wrong. I'm fine. Why are you here? Amy tried to pull away, but I held on tighter. Why am I here? Amy, you disappeared from your room. We didn't know where you were. We thought... My voice cracked. We thought something terrible happened to you. Evelyn appeared in the doorway. Her face was calm, but there was something fierce in her eyes. You need to leave my house, Blair. Leave? Are you insane? I stood up and moved between Evelyn and Amy. You took my daughter in the middle of the night. You kidnapped her. She didn't take me, Amy yelled from behind me, small but angry. I wanted to come here. I turned to look at her. Amy, you snuck out of the house at 2 in the morning. How did you even... I texted her. Amy's face was red. I got my phone from the drawer and I texted Aunt Evelyn and she came to get me because she actually cares about me. I was taken aback. She had planned this. Amy, you don't understand what's happening here. Yes, I do. Aunt Evelyn didn't take me. She saved me. You're just mad because I don't want to live with you anymore. Amy's voice cracked and tears started falling down her face. I stared at my daughter. She was defending her. She actually thought Evelyn was the hero in this. See? Evelyn's voice was soft behind me. She knows who really loves her. I grabbed Amy's hand. We're leaving. Right now. No, you're not. Evelyn moved into the doorway and blocked it with her entire body. She's staying here, with me, where she belongs. She belongs at home, with her family, with me and Henry. I tried to move forward, but Evelyn didn't budge. I am her family. I've been more of a mother to her than you've ever been. Evelyn's jaw was set. You're not her mother. You're her aunt. And you're sick. You need help. I could feel the panic rising in my chest. She was 6 years old the first time I knew. Really knew. We were at the park and she fell off the swings and ran straight past you to me. She wanted me to make it better. And when I held her, I realized she was supposed to be mine. That's when I understood. She wasn't meant for you. She was meant for me. Evelyn's voice was eerily calm. She said these things like they were facts. Like the sky was blue. Like water was wet. So you decided when she was 6 that my daughter belonged to you? Do you hear how insane that sounds? I was trying to keep my voice steady, but it was shaking. It's not insane. It's the truth. After that day, I started noticing everything. She smiled bigger with me. She laughed more. She chose to sit next to me at family dinners. She was choosing me. She knew who her real mother was, even if no one else did. Evelyn stepped closer. Her real mother is standing right here. I carried her for 9 months. I gave birth to her. I stayed up with her when she was sick. I taught her to walk and talk and read. Me. Not you. I pulled Amy behind me completely. You did those things, but you didn't do them right. You were too strict. Too controlling. You suffocated her. I would have given her freedom. I would have let her be herself. Evelyn was advancing on us now. You would have spoiled her. You would have turned her into someone who thinks the world revolves around her. That's not parenting. That's manipulation. I backed up until we hit the wall. I gave her what she needed, what you refused to give her. And now she's finally home. Evelyn reached for Amy and I slapped her hand away. Don't touch her. She's my daughter. Evelyn screamed it right in my face. No, she's not. She never was. You latched onto a baby that wasn't yours and convinced yourself she belonged to you. I screamed back. I didn't convince myself of anything. She was supposed to be mine. Why do you think she always wanted to be around me? Why do you think she always chose me over you? Because she felt it too. That connection. That bond. Evelyn grabbed for Amy again, and this time she got her arm. Let go of her. I tried to pry her fingers off, but her grip was like iron. No. I've waited too long. I've been patient. I've done everything right. I made her this room. I bought her clothes. I prepared for her to come live with me. This is her home now. Evelyn yanked Amy toward her. This is kidnapping. This is insane. You told a 9-year-old to sneak out of her house in the middle of the night. I pulled Amy back toward me. I rescued her. She called me. She asked me to save her from you. What was I supposed to do? Leave my daughter in a house where she's miserable? Evelyn's face was red and covered in sweat. She's not miserable. You made her think she was miserable. You spent months planting that in her head. I was pulling as hard as I could, but Evelyn wouldn't let go. I didn't plant anything. I opened her eyes. I showed her what a real mother looks like. Evelyn yanked harder, and Amy cried out, "You're hurting her. Evelyn, you're hurting her." I could see the pain on Amy's face. Stop it. Both of you stop. Amy was crying between us. I'm not hurting her. I would never hurt my daughter. You're the one hurting her by trying to take her away from me. Evelyn's eyes were completely wild now. She's not your daughter. Say it. Say she's not your daughter. I was screaming in her face. She is. She's mine. I don't care what biology says. I don't care who gave birth to her. She's mine. I claimed her. I loved her. I prepared for her. That makes her mine. Evelyn pulled so hard we all stumbled into the hallway. I managed to get us to the stairs. Evelyn was clawing at me, at Amy, trying to pull her back. You can't have her. She's mine. Do you know what it's like to want something so badly it makes you sick? To watch everyone else get the one thing you can't have? I deserve this. I deserve her. You don't deserve anything. You're trying to steal my child. We were halfway down the stairs now. I'm not stealing her. She came to me. She wanted me. That means she's mine now. That means I get to be her mother. Evelyn grabbed the back of my shirt and yanked. You're delusional. You need to be locked up. I kicked back and hit her shin. She stumbled but didn't let go. Mom, please. Amy was sobbing. Please, just let me stay. I want to stay with Aunt Evelyn. No, absolutely not. I pulled Amy down the last few stairs. That's when the door burst open. Police, show me your hands. 3 officers rushed in with Henry right behind them. Police, let go of the child. The first officer moved toward us fast. Evelyn was still holding Amy's arm. She looked at the officers with pure terror. No, you can't take her. She's mine. She finally came home to me. You can't take my daughter. Ma'am, release the child right now. The officer's hand moved to his belt. I can't. Don't make me let go. Please. She's all I have. She's the only thing I've ever wanted. She's my daughter. She's supposed to be with me. Evelyn was shaking all over. Ma'am, last warning. Evelyn looked at Amy. You're mine. You know that, right? You'll always be mine, no matter what happens. Then 2 officers pulled her hands off and she collapsed to the floor screaming, No, no, she's mine. Give her back to me. She's my baby. She chose me. She wanted me. That makes her mine. I grabbed Amy and pulled her away. Henry wrapped his arms around both of us. Evelyn was still on the floor being restrained and she was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She's mine. She was supposed to be mine. Please, please don't take my daughter away. The paramedics came and took Evelyn to a psychiatric facility. She was still crying about her daughter when they loaded her into the ambulance. Amy watched from Henry's arms and didn't say a word. The police took our statements. They said Evelyn would be evaluated and we'd hear from them soon. The drive home was silent. Amy sat in the back seat staring out the window like she was trying to process what just happened. For the next few days, she barely spoke to us. She'd eat her meals in silence and go straight to her room. I didn't push her. I figured she needed time to work through everything on her own. Then slowly she started asking questions. Why did Aunt Evelyn have a room for her? Why did she tell her to sneak out? Why did she say I was mean when I was just trying to protect her? Each question felt like progress, like she was starting to see the truth. A week later, she crawled into bed with me early in the morning. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. Mom? She whispered. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I pulled her close and held her while she cried. I know, baby. I know. That's when I knew we were going to be okay. Especially because Evelyn got admitted to a psych ward.
My son's coach benched him for poor performance, but then I discovered the coach was faking stats, so his own son always looked like the star. My son Tyler has been obsessed with basketball since he could walk. He's not the tallest kid on the court, but he's quick, sharp, and he lives for the game. Last season, he was starting point guard and even voted team captain by his teammates. So when this season began and he suddenly got benched, I was stunned. Coach Sanders told me it was poor performance, said Tyler's stats had dropped and he needed to earn his spot back. I didn't want to be that parent, the one who storms in screaming about playing time, so I just encouraged Tyler to keep pushing. But I could tell it was crushing him. He'd come home sweaty, exhausted, saying, Dad, I don't get it. I'm playing better than ever. At first I thought maybe it was just favoritism because coach's son, Aiden, was suddenly the new star. Every game, the announcers rattled off his stats like he was unstoppable. 20 points, 7 assists, flawless shooting. Tyler, meanwhile, sat on the bench and clapped, but something felt off, so I started watching closer. I filmed games on my phone, and the more I compared what I saw with the official stat sheets, the less it added up. Shots that clearly missed counted as makes. Turnovers disappeared. Assists magically credited to Aiden even when someone else made the pass. The breaking point came at a Friday night game. Tyler got subbed in for 5 minutes. In that short time, I watched him score 6 points, grab 2 steals, and dish out an assist. When the stat sheet was posted after the game, his line read 0 points, 0 steals, 0 assists. I confronted the team manager, who handles the numbers. He looked uncomfortable. Look, I just enter the stats coach gives me. That's it. That's when it hit me. Coach wasn't just biased. He was actively rewriting history. I brought it up privately after practice. Coach, why does the stat sheet show my son did nothing tonight? I've got video proving otherwise. His face tightened. Stats aren't perfect. Maybe you saw it differently. No. I saw exactly what happened, and you're erasing it. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. Listen, Aiden's got scouts watching. This season is critical for him. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I just stared at him. He didn't even deny it. He was openly telling me he was sabotaging other kids' records to pad his son's future. The next day, I showed the video to a few other parents. They were furious. One mom gasped, My kid had a triple-double last month, but the sheet said he barely played. Another dad muttered, Explains why Aiden looks like a superhero every week. We talked about bringing it to the school board, but then someone pointed out, if the coach was willing to fake stats this blatantly, what else would he be willing to do to protect his son's image? That night, Tyler came into my room holding his phone. His hands were shaking. Dad, he whispered, look at this. It was a group chat screenshot. Aiden and a couple of teammates were in it, laughing about how Tyler's dad is obsessed and saying, wait until coach really buries him. Then there was one line that made my blood run cold. He won't even have a team to play for after next week. I read it until the text bubbles burned like after images behind my eyes. Tyler tried to shrug, but his shoulders were tight, jaw clenched hard enough to creak. Maybe it's just trash talk, he said. Trash talk doesn't schedule a date, I said. Something's coming. I started with the one person who could yank the break, Principal Patel. I asked for a meeting and walked in with receipts, side-by-side clips of plays and official stats, every mismatch highlighted, slowed down, labeled. Patel watched with his elbows on the desk, fingers pressed to his lips like he was holding his face together. This is serious, he said, after a long minute. If these stat discrepancies are intentional, they are. He looked at the ceiling. If I move too fast without a formal review, Sanders will claim we undermined the program mid-season. Parents will take sides. We'll start a fire we can't put out. It's already burning, I said. You can smell the smoke. He nodded and promised a preliminary inquiry. I walked out into the hall and passed Coach Sanders himself. Clipboard, whistle, smile that didn't hit his eyes. He tipped the clipboard at me like a toast. Always great to see engaged parents, he said lightly. I hear you've been passionate. I hear you're cutting my son, I replied. His smile stiffened just enough to show the wireframe underneath. Varsity is earned. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. That line again. He'd used it when he told me to look the other way about stats. The velvet on the surface, the blade underneath. Friday's game made the knife visible. Tyler didn't touch the floor. Aiden played 32 straight minutes and recorded a career night that would have made sense if the ball had cooperated. It didn't. I had video of rimmed out jumpers that somehow became made twos, missed free throws credited as 1 and 1, a turnover that vanished like the ball had fallen into a sewer grate in the spreadsheet. Afterward, the team account on social media posted a graphic. Aiden Sanders, 2879, star. Comments lit up. The kids tagged each other with fire emojis. If you stared hard enough, you could see 15 other kids getting dimmer. Saturday morning, the email hit. Mandatory team meeting, Monday, 6 p.m., roster updates. My phone buzzed like a hive. Parents started texting. You hearing this? Rumor he's pushing kids to JV. TV. He told my kid to keep his head down. I didn't sleep much that weekend. Instead, I made a plan that felt insane until it didn't. First call, the score table volunteer who'd been working home games since before Aiden could dribble, Mrs. Kirk. She'd always sat near the bookkeeper, a quiet woman with perfectly stacked pencils. I asked if the official book ever differed from what went online. All the time this season, she said. Coach sends corrections after games. They're just different. Do you keep copies of the original book? She hesitated. I take photos. In case a ref asks later, could you send me last 5? Ding, ding, ding. Pages slid into my messages. In ink, Tyler's 5-minute burst from 2 weeks ago. 6 points, 2 steals, 1 assist. Online, zeros across. In ink, Aiden's 3rd of November night. Online, 10/16. I thanked her. Second call, the assistant coach, Martinez, who looked like he ate stress for breakfast and never chewed. Off the record, he said, I don't touch stats. That's all Sanders in the book. But if you show up Monday with evidence, don't do it alone. He'll try to make it about angry parents instead of what it is. What is it? A coach building a castle on every kid's back. We ended the call, and then came the harder part. Other parents. I invited them to my living room Sunday night. 14 showed up. Some I knew well, some only from bleacher nods. We lined my coffee table with paper plates and stat printouts, and I set my laptop on a stack of cookbooks. I hit play. The room filled with quiet gasps and the occasional profanity. When the clip of Tyler's erased 6 points ended, a mom named Dana put her face in her hands. That night I grounded Evan, took his Xbox for a week for not trying. He had everything you just showed there. I punished my kid for your coach's lie. An older dad, Isaac, tapped the table. We take this to Patel. He drags his feet. He always drags his feet. And by then, kids are cut. Sanders will say it's for discipline, or attitude, or team chemistry. We need something public, undeniable, immediate. Monday's meeting is public, I said. We make it undeniable. He looked at the laptop, then at me. You're going to start a war. It's already started, I said. We just didn't admit it. Monday. The gym hummed before a single word was spoken. Players clustered at half court. Parents lined the bleachers, arms folded, eyes like storm glass. Sanders stood near the scorer's table, whistle hanging like a medal. Aiden beside him in a hoodie with the team logo stretched across his chest. Thank you for coming, Sanders boomed, the voice of a man who practiced authority in the mirror. As you know, we've had distractions this season. Truth isn't a distraction, someone muttered behind me. And to restore focus, we're restructuring the roster. He lifted a sheet. Varsity confirmations. Aiden Sanders, a smattering of claps. Harris, Moore, Patel. He paused, let the silence hook. Players reassigned to junior varsity or released. He looked up at me, held my eyes for a notch too long. Tyler Reed, gasps. A thud of some parent's water bottle hitting the bleacher deck. Tyler's head dropped like someone had cut the string holding it up. I was already standing. Coach, I said, voice too loud. Before you release anyone, let's look at the foundation you're standing on. He tried to smile. Sir, this isn't a Q&A. I'm not asking. I'm showing. I aircasted my screen to the scoreboard projector. The gym's white wall lit up. 2 video frames synced. Left, game footage. Right, official stats from the team website. I hit play. Tyler steals. Bucket. Scorekeeper's pencil moves. Ada. 0 help anywhere near the play. The online sheet. Tyler 0 points. Aiden +2. A murmur swelled into surf. I let the first clip finish and rolled the second, then the third. Each time, the left side contradicted the right side like a magician's reveal. This is how the trick is done. By clip 5, parents were on their feet. By clip 8, someone yelled, "You robbed my kid!" Someone else shouted, "He's been doing this all season!" Sanders' whistle bounced against his chest as he stepped forward. Parents, sit down. You're disrupting. You're the disruption, Dana called, hands shaking. You made me punish my own child for your son's highlight reel. Aiden looked like someone had lifted the floor beneath him. He reached for his dad's sleeve, whispering. The murmurs turned sharper, focused, like a lens finding its subject. I let the 9th clip play. Then I paused the screen on a frame where the ball sat midway to the rim, frozen proof of a shot that never fell, and the stat sheet on the right declared it a make. Explain this, I said. Sanders' mouth opened, closed, opened. Stats are corrected post-game, he said finally. Sometimes the bookkeeper misses. We review film and adjust. The bookkeeper didn't miss. I pulled out Mrs. Kirk's photos and threw them onto the scorer's table. Your pen did the adjusting. The assistant coach, Martinez, who had been a statue until that moment, cleared his throat, loud enough to be opinion. I can confirm the official book differs from online entries this season. I was told those were corrections. Seeing this, I can't support these numbers. It only took that. One adult in team gear saying he couldn't support this. The sound in the gym turned. It wasn't yelling anymore. It was choice. The kind that rearranges a room. Patel, who must have sprinted from his office when a staffer texted him, slipped in near the door and took it all in. The clips paused on the wall, the papers scattered, the faces turned like compasses finding north. He stepped down onto the court. Coach Sanders, he said, voice steady. Effective immediately. You are placed on administrative leave pending full investigation. Coach Martinez, you'll run practices. Roster changes are suspended. Sanders stared at him as if he'd spoken a foreign language. Then he looked at me, and whatever mask he'd been wearing fell in a crack so quick I could feel the air change. This isn't over, he said. Not for you. Aiden tugged harder at his sleeve. Dad, the whistle tapped his chest like a heartbeat gone wrong. He didn't come to practice the next day, or the day after. Martinez took over, and the air in the gym lightened, like someone had opened a window that had been painted shut. Boys ran, laughed, smacked backs. Tyler moved like a spring that had been compressed too long, finally let loose. In the first game of the post-Sanders era, he threaded passes through seams that didn't exist until the ball found them, finished at the rim like it owed him money, and dove on a loose ball that had 2 seniors staring at each other with that grin you only get when you remember why you love a game. The stat sheet matched the film. For 1 week, it felt like the end. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I usually don't pick up. I picked up. You happy? The voice said. Gravel dragged across concrete. I gave 20 years to that program. Coach, I said. Because who else could it be? You think you won because you played a slideshow? He laughed once, a dry cough that wasn't a laugh at all. You humiliated my family. You killed Aiden's chances. You did that, I said. Not me. A pause. He had scouts. He had offers. Do you know what happens when one parent with a chip starts a digital wildfire? They disappear. Offers? I said. You mean the emails you CC'd yourself on? I FOIA'd the district inbox. There were 2 coaches asking for film. That's not a pipeline. That's curiosity silence. Then a click. That night, someone drove onto my lawn and did figure 8s until grass ripped from the roots. Tyler's gym bag appeared on our porch with every zipper cut. A landscaping rock went through the mailbox door. The ring camera caught a hooded figure, but not a face. The cops wrote a report and shrugged in the way cops do when you can see the paragraph already filed in a drawer labeled unknown suspect. Tyler and I replaced the mailbox after practice. He slid bolts through the new box and sat on the curb, tired, happy from a win, dirty from digging, a boy and almost a man at once. Do you ever, he started, then coughed into his sleeve. Do you ever wish you'd left it alone? I thought about lies so thick they suffocate people who breathe them. You're sleeping better now, or worse? He smiled without looking up. Better. Me too, I said. The next threat didn't come as rubber on lawn. It came as bureaucracy. 3 days later, our athletic office emailed that Tyler had been flagged as academically ineligible. The message timestamp was 2:06 a.m. His math grade, a minus for months, had become a C overnight. The note at the bottom said, quiz re-entered. I drove to school before the coffee machine could finish a full drip. Tyler's math teacher, Ms. Cho, met me at her door with her laptop already open. I didn't change his grade, she said before I spoke. And I have 2 emails, 1:58 and 2:07 a.m., requesting I resubmit my gradebook to the athletic office because of a sync error. I didn't see them until morning. Who sent them? She turned the screen. The address was the generic athletics alias. The signature block, though, was the athletic coordinator's assistant, a clipboard type who had spent the last 5 years under Sanders' gravity. She paled as the principal and district IT arrived and pulled server logs. There it was. The grade change came from a login at 2:02 a.m. from an IP address that matched a printer in the coach's office. 4 minutes later, a second login attempted to hard refresh the gradebook to lock the change. Patel didn't sigh this time. He sent 2 emails, made 1 phone call, and by lunch there were district investigators in polos walking the hallway like Tide. Tyler's grade snapped back to an A-, his eligibility restored. The athletic office assistant cried. She said she'd forwarded an email from someone she assumed was the coordinator because the address looked similar on her phone. The coordinator, summoned from another building, swore she hadn't touched a thing. The district IT guy flagged the coach's office account and, by late afternoon, disabled it with a note about policy violations. I didn't say Sanders' name. I didn't have to. What I did say was, there's a game tomorrow night. We'll be there. It was the kind of game where you feel the baseline of the crowd in your chest. A conference rival with banners older than some teachers. A student section that roared even during warm-ups. I sat with the parents who had refused to go quiet. Dana squeezed my hand hard enough to turn knuckles white. Isaac leaned over and said, keep your phone ready. Not for stats. For whatever comes next. What came next, surprisingly, was basketball. Pure. Tyler controlled tempo like he'd swallowed a metronome. Not flashy, just inevitable. When the other team hedged, he turned the corner. When they sagged, he hit the pull-up. He found cutters like he'd been given a map. Aiden sat 3 rows up in the stands with a hood over his head and his father's set jaw under it. And for once, nobody watched him. With 2 minutes left, tie game, our sophomore center slammed home a putback so emphatic